What's up, guys? I'm Nicholas, and in this video I'm going to explain how we can set up this dashboard on Google Sheets. Basically, this dashboard will be connected to Jobber using the API, and the idea is that we pull data from Jobber and then we populate all these tabs here. So you see we have a tab for clients, a tab for jobs, invoices, requests, and quotes, which is pretty much the data that we tend to have on Jobber. And then we will have this dashboard here, which pretty much will be a summary of the most important things that we need to see there. Like, for example, how many clients we have, like how many clients are owing, like let me make this bigger, like how many clients are owing us money. For example, how many jobs, how many open jobs you have, invoices, right? So this is pretty useful data that we might need. And you can see here that we also have like a date range. So we can select, or we can only just take this and it will just show us, right? Like the complete data set that we have. And I also added this thing here, which might be useful, which is like, okay, let's see, we want to see like how many overdue invoices we have, like which ones, right? So you can just come here and then you can select, for example, this one here, and it will just show you in a more granular way the invoices that you need to check that out there, right? So that's the idea. All right, so before we get into how to make the connection, I will just explain high level how this workflow works so you can just get a better idea of what we're doing here, okay? So basically we have this data on Jobber, right? So we have clients, jobs, invoices, requests, and quotes. And the idea is that we will use AppScript, right? So we connect to API using AppScript and we pull data to these sheets that we have here, right? So we have one sheet for clients, one sheet for jobs, one sheet for invoices, one sheet for requests, and one sheet for quotes. So basically these ones here, right? Clients, jobs, invoices, requests, and quotes. And the idea there is that we pull the data, that like the raw data for each tab, and then using those tabs data, we build the dashboard, which is pretty much this one here, right? Okay, this one here, dashboard. And this is just a bunch of formulas that basically is just kind of like making the calculations for you, right? So we'll build this dashboard, and in the dashboard we have like, okay, the summary metrics, so we can see key numbers at a glance. We have some date filters, basically these that I explained, so you can filter by date and get a better idea depending on a period that you need. And also you have some detailed drop downs, right? So basically this is what I mentioned here. You can just filter by overdue invoices, how many jobs, for example, how many completed jobs but not invoiced. So you can see pretty much key metrics, but more in a granular way, okay? And then, so these are the options. And then the idea with this is just, like to get some operations view of where the money is getting stuck, right? So this is like pretty useful. All right, so now we need to get something that is called refresh token. This refresh token basically is a token, a personal token that you can get on your account. And with that, you can pull data from the account, right? So I will explain how to do it. It kind of gets a little bit technical, but what I did is that I created this button here. It's called Connect Jobber. So you just click here and it will open this sidebar, all right? And then here, let me make this bigger so you can see, basically I just added some steps that we need to do to get this token, okay? So first we need to get like a client ID and a client secret. So I will explain each of them step by step. So let's start with going to Jobber. So now the things like here, this is the typical Jobber that you know, right? So you have here like all the things, client requests, Jobber, client quote, jobs, invoices, right? So this is the data that you have on Jobber. But to get this token, you need to go somewhere else, all right? So it is not here, it's somewhere else. So what you do is that you go to this URL, developer.getjobber.com, all right? So once you go there, I mean, in this case, it's showing me this because I already logged in. But let me just show you how it looks like the first time that you go there. The first time that you go there, it will show something like this, all right? So you can think of this like a different website. So for example, if you go to log in, you cannot use your current username and password because it won't work. You need to register. So what you do is that you click here in sign up and you just create an account, right? Maybe you can use the same email and the same password that you have for the typical Jobber account. And then you just sign up, right? It's pretty straightforward. Once you do it, you log in, all right? And when you log in, this is what it will show. So basically, this is just the developer part of it, right? So here we have like the CRM itself, and this is just the developer part. So you can create things. So now we need to create an app. An app basically is just like you can think of it like a window. So it's just like we're opening a window to our account so we can access the data. Okay, so you go here and then you click new, and then we need to fill this form, all right? So first we need to give it a name to the app. So you can just call it like YouTube video in this case. Developer name, you can just put your name here. And then something that is important is the callback URL. So this is something that once you start this flow here, it needs to redirect somewhere that it will give you like a token, and with that token we can exchange it to a refresh token. All right, don't worry, this sidebar will take care of it. You just need to understand that you need to set up a callback URL. In this case, I just put something on default, which is my website, and you can just use that. Like for example, just copy that and put it here. Here, just copy that and just put it here. All right. And the important thing here is that it needs to be the same one, all right? So you can see here that I added a note that is pretty much saying like, make sure this callback URL is exactly the same as the callback URL in your Java developer app settings, which basically is this, okay? Because if it is not the same, it won't work, all right? So it needs to be the same one. So you can use my website, it just doesn't really matter, or you can use your own website or any other website, right? It just needs to be a website. Let me close this. So I will just put my website there, automationforgrowth.com, and then you need to give it an app description. So, I mean, you could say like, okay, this is for a Google Sheet dashboard. Actually, this is just aesthetics because you don't really like it. This won't go to like approval. It's just to create it, all right? But it's required. And then you can just add a logo and add a gallery there, but we don't need it. So the next important thing is the scopes. So this part is important. Basically, this is just the permissions that you want to give to the app. So basically what type of data you want the app to access, okay? So this is just for security purposes, and this is important. You don't want to click everything or just click something like allow something that you're not sure about. In this case, this like something that I like about Jobber is that it's pretty kind of like simple in their copy. So it's easy to understand, right? Like there are some other APIs that they just make it so complicated, you know? But for example, this one is pretty straightforward. Okay, so you want to get clients, well, you just need to tick this one on, right? Basically, that's it. And if you can see here that by default we have read, basically means we can read data. So we can just access the app, we can access your data and read it, all right? When you take this to write is if you want to use the API to edit things in Jobber, right? So basically, for example, maybe, I mean, in this case, we're not doing this. We're not doing like writing data because we're just pulling data. We are just reading data from Jobber and writing that data to a Google Sheet, right? But let's say you have like the opposite, right? Maybe you have data on Google Sheets and you want to move that data to Jobber. In that case, it's the opposite, right? So we kind of like reading data from Google Sheets and then we are writing data to Jobber. So in that case, you will tick this on, right? But in this case, we don't need it. So you can just leave that unchecked. And then what else we need? We need requests, right? We need quotes, we need jobs, and we need invoices, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the data that we need, so that's fine. These are some other things in case you are also needing that, but for this demo, you can see that I'm only getting data for invoices, jobs, quotes, requests, and clients. But you get the idea, right? So if you need some other type of data, just make sure that you check that here, all right? Now webhooks, you can skip this part. Webhooks, we don't need it. For the ones who are interested, basically a webhook is when you want Jobber to notify somewhere if something happens. To make it simple for you, like to give you an example, let's say that you on Jobber have I don't know, let's say you have quotes, right? So maybe every time that you create a quote, you want that something happens somewhere, all right? So maybe you want to get notified on Telegram, all right? So if you set up a webhook that basically will be connected to quotes, and then when you get a quote there, it will just notify Telegram that you got a quote. So that's basically what a webhook is. It's just like something needs to happen instantaneous, so Jobber needs to notify somewhere. In this case, we're not building anything with webhooks, so you don't need to worry about it, but it's just to give you an idea in case you wanted to build something, all right? And then this refresh token rotation. So this part is super important. You wanna disable that, all right? Basically what it means is that every time that you kind of like make a call to the API, it will refresh the refresh token. It will just change the refresh token, but it's just a mess. I mean, this is for security purposes in case I don't know, you wanted to do it that way. But in this case, we don't want it, right? So we don't want to be switching this token every time because we will need to save the token somewhere and it will just be more like, it will make the automation more complex. All right, so in this case, we only need one, the same, like the first time that we get the token, that's the one that we will need, all right? But in case you are like, okay, I want to be like super secure and I want to have like a refresh token rotation, you just enable this, but then you need to change it, that you need to edit the automation to be saving this new refresh token every time, all right? But in this case, you don't need to worry about it. Just keep it simple, straightforward, and then you disable that, all right? So I think with that, we're done. Let me just save the app here. And you can see here that we got these new details, all right? So we got a client ID and a client secret. So that's basically what you need to copy. So you just copy that, and then you come here to the sidebar again, and you paste it. All right, so you paste that, and then you do the same for client secret. And that's basically it. So now you can just click here and start refresh token process, okay? So you can see that this got open. So it's saying that open Jobber, approve access, and then copy the final URL, all right? So you just need to click here and then authorize the app. So that's basically what it's doing. You can see here that now the app wants access to your Jobber account, right? And then you can see here all the details of basically what is going to access. So you can click in allow access, and then you can see here at the top, it gives you like a long URL. So just copy that. You don't need to worry about any of that, and you just paste it like that, here in this box. And then you click in save refresh token. And voila, with that you kind of like that they have some code here in the back that basically just will extract what we need and then uses that token, exchange it to a refresh token, and it returns the refresh token. All right, so you can see here that I'm also I added this in case you want to see the refresh token itself, how you can see it. Basically you need to go to app script, then script properties, and then you will see there the properties. I will explain this at the end. I will explain how you can see the code and everything. So you can see, like you can understand this a little bit better. Okay, so with that we done, we don't need to do any more setup on Jobber. Now we need to pull the data, right? I actually I didn't show you, but the first time that you run this, let's say you make a copy of this spreadsheet, I will just, like that. The first time that you run this, you will get a pop-up that you need to authorize this app. Okay, so I will just explain at a high level here how it looks, so you don't think it's an error. So once you click here in Connect Jobber, you will see this pop-up, right? Authorization required, right? So for the ones who are not familiar, every time that you run a script on Google Sheets, like for the first time, you always get this pop-up, right? So if you see it, don't think it's a mistake, don't think it's an error or something. It's just that you need to authorize this code first to make it run on Google Sheets. So just click on OK here, and then you make sure you click here in Advanced, and then go to Control Center, okay, which is pretty much the name. And then you make sure to select this and then continue, all right? And then from there, you can just see the sidebar and everything, okay? So this is just the first time. You just need to do it once. Don't worry about it. And then once you're done with that, you can just continue, right? So let me move this to... All right, so now what I want to show you is like how it will look like, in real life. So what I will do is I will just delete this data so you can see that it actually works. I mean, you can close this sidebar now and you don't need it anymore because we already have the token. But you can use it again in case, like maybe you change the password or something on Jobber and stops working, because usually that's what happens, like if you change the password or something changes on Jobber, maybe this token gets revoked and you need to get a new one. So you just come back, do the same flow, and you will do it, right? You will get a new token. I mean, technically you shouldn't, you don't need to delete the data here, because what the automation does is that it will clean the sheet first and then it will pull the data, but I just did it so you can see that it actually works, all right? So you click here in Sync Jobber, and then you just wait a few seconds, and what you will see is that basically it will just start populating data, right? So it pulled clients, jobs, now let's on invoices, now it should be on requests, then quotes, and you get like Jobber data sync, right? So basically this is just some dummy data that I added on Jobber. So you see I have 100 records for each. Let me close this. So basically you see each of them have 100 records. I just created 100 for each, so you can see. And you can see this is just raw data, right? So basically I'm just pulling, everything that might be useful. Client, property ID, right? Like the status. The source is basically the app. This is requests for clients. We're getting, name, company, email, phone number. See, this is data that you might need. In case you want to edit, pull more data, or reduce the data that you need here, I will explain in a few seconds how you can edit that on the code. But here, that's basically the idea. And then once you do that, these formulas will refresh and then you will see the data, all right? And then here, basically you can select, right, from to, right? And then all time, if you want to see the data for all time, or in this case, if you only want to see a range, you make sure you uncheck this and then you select the range that you want to see, right? So in this case, let me, for example, like that. So, in the last 5 months, we have like this overdue invoices. And then you can see here the data, the metrics, right? Key metrics. And again, just what I explained at the beginning, right? So that's pretty much how it works, the dashboard. All right, so now what I will explain is how you can see the code. And this will be useful in case you are using Gemini or any other LLM and you want to like edit the automation. Maybe you want to extend it, or you want to remove some things if you don't need, or you want to tweak it in some way. So what you do is that you come here to extensions and then you click in app script, all right? So this will be the code. And basically the most important thing to understand here is that you will have like all these are the file, like all of these are the files with the code, right? But basically you can see that the split is like we have config, where it's like usually the data that is handy to edit, like for example headers and like the names of the sheets. Like that's like the handy things that you might need to edit quickly. And then you have here like the rest of code with the core logic. Okay, so that's like the idea. In case you wanna, for example, change the API version, you can change it here. In case Java updates the API, stops working and you don't know how to fix it, come here, change the API version, fixed. All right. Now, now remember at the beginning when we were doing the refresh token setup, it got saved somewhere. So if you want to check that token, what you do is that you hover over this and you see this little gear here, click there in project settings, and then here you can change basically a lot of things. Like for example, if you're changing the time zone, you can change it there. But then here in the script properties, that's what is using to connect to your, okay? In that case, we have the your client secret, which is pretty much what we got here, right? And we have the refresh token, and this is just after all the flow that happened in the back, this is the returning token, okay? And that's basically what we needed to connect to Jobber. So in case something is like off, maybe you don't have this token for some reason, just make sure it is there so the connection works, all right? But again, you know, if something happens, I would just recommend to connect again to Jobber, and the code in the back will recreate this for you, all right? So hopefully this was helpful for any of you guys. This template will be down below in the description. Just go there, make a copy of the spreadsheet, and just follow the steps that I explained in this video. So in that way, you can connect to Jobber. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them down below in the comments. I will reply to them as soon as I see them. And if you're a business or an operator who uses Jobber and you need an automation like this, or maybe something more complex, and you need help with that, feel free to book a call. In the first comment, you see there is a link. Go there, book a call, and we can go through the automation together and see if I can help. All right. So see you in the next one.